and now you've got time to make up for the sleep. Because you know what it's like in the world? You've got to get up early in the morning to get the kids ready for school. You've got to go to work. You've got to clean the house up. You've got to drive through the heavy traffic. You get to work, and you've got to work really hard. Sometimes you don't have time for lunch. And you have to work hard in the afternoon, and that's being a monk, let alone being a layperson in the world. We all have to work really hard, and no wonder we get tired. And now you're letting go. You're relaxing. You will experience tiredness on the first few days of a retreat. It's acceptable. It's allowable. When I gave you the 8 precepts, we chanted the 8 precepts this morning, there was not a precept said I shall refrain from nodding. That's not part of the precepts. So it is all right. It happens naturally because you're tired, but because this is a peaceful place, because you don't have to work on the computer, you don't have to use your mobile phone, you don't have to drive through the traffic, except to the breakfast tables, because there's many traffic there when you have to rush to get the breakfast in the morning. Because of that, eventually you get your energy back. Give yourself time. Allow nature just to work its way out. We flow, we let go according to life. And that way, we always will be able to develop good states of mind. I gave a wonderful story about letting go in my book, which came from one of my fellow monks. It's a great story because it showed actually how relaxing at the right time and place can actually save your life. He was a New Zealand monk, and he was with an old school friend, a university friend, I can't remember which, and he was hiking in New Zealand. If any of you have ever been to New Zealand, they've got lots of beautiful open spaces. When I first saw those open spaces, you know, the mountains and lakes, many places you can go, they call it tramping, just their word, like hiking, walking in the wilderness. I thought it looked so beautiful in the photographs. It looked just so delightful, almost paradise. But when I went there, I found a thing which you couldn't see in the photographs was the sandflies, like little mosquitoes, who kept biting you and biting you and biting you. They were so vicious in those wilderness. And the tourist brochures never told you about the sandflies. But anyway, he was walking with his friend in the wilderness. And after walking all day, in the afternoon, they came to a beach. It was a very warm, summery day. So having walked all day, they were sweaty, they were tired. And there's this beautiful stretch of beach with this blue ocean. And he couldn't resist it. So take off all his robes and go for a swim. Now, you're not supposed to go for a swim for pleasure. And perhaps this is one of the reasons. Because as soon as he got into the water and started swimming, he got caught in one of these riptides. These currents, which actually many people get killed. And that was one of the very dangerous beaches. Because once you're in this current, it's incredible. It's much stronger than you are, and it carries you out a long way from the beach. He got caught in one of these very strong currents. But because he was a monk, he knew what to do. He relaxed and let go. He didn't even try to swim against that current. He completely relaxed. Now that took a lot of courage, because that current took him a long way from the shore, many hundreds of meters. And when that that current started losing its force, as it does when it goes out, only when it started losing its force did he start to swim. Swim away from the current and towards the shore. He was such a long way out, he said, when he started swimming, that he actually did make it to the beach, and he was absolutely exhausted. He used every last ounce of his energy to get back. But he told me and understood that what he was telling was the truth. if he had tried to fight the current, he'd have still been taken out to the same distance. Maybe it took more time. And when he got out to the same distance, he would have been utterly exhausted. He would not have had the energy to swim back. He said letting go, literally going with the flow, saved his life. When there's a current you can't fight, you let go, you give in, you go with the flow. That happens so often in our life. In our meditation, if you're tired, you have to just go with the flow. Be tired, it will disappear after a short while. In fact, the more you struggle, the more you use up your energy, which means the longer the sleepiness lasts. I say, if you're sleepy, then sleep. Get it over and done with. It's cause and effect. It's nature. It's because you're out of energy. If your car hasn't got any gas, of course it won't go. So you just fill up with gas. You get some more petrol, that's all. And you get the petrol, the energy of the mind, by just being still. It comes back all by itself. So you go with the flow, which is making peace in every moment. It's the same in life. If someone starts arguing with you, what do? Do you try and fight that current to somebody else? If they argue with you, just go with the flow. They want to argue? They can. It's all right with me. If they argue or get with me, it doesn't affect me. They're the one who gets hoarse. You know, there's a lovely story actually from Christianity. Of all the Christian traditions, the one which actually is closest to Buddhism is the Franciscans. Because actually they don't have money, or at least in the early years they didn't have any money, and they went for alms food. And this particular story, there was one of these monks in the early days of the Franciscan order, and he was just so generous. So he was walking in the town for alms food, and this very, very poor man asked him for alms. And the monk said, if I don't have anything, I don't have any money, all I've got is my robe. And the poor man said, okay, that'll do. And this was such a generous monk that he said, okay, and he gave him his robe. I don't know if I would do that. Would you do that, Mangala? Because when he got back to his monastery, he was naked. Now that's real generosity. You give everything. I mean, literally everything. So when he got back to his temple, his monastery, he was naked. He knocked on the door, and the other monk said, get away, we don't have any crazy naked people in this monastery. He said, it's me. And when they saw it, hey, it's our monk. So what happened? Did he get robbed? Did he get assaulted? And so they took him inside, they gave him a new robe, and he said what had happened. That a very, very poor person had asked him for something. The only thing he had to give was his robe. So he was generous. He was that generous, he even gave the only thing he owned, his robe. And all the monks said, now that's real generosity. That's actually what a monk should do. Someone's really poor, you can have my robe. I don't know if I'd get away with that in Malaysia, because I might be into big trouble. But nevertheless, they thought, well, we can respect that. That's a wonderful thing to do. The problem was that it must be like the grapevine of the poor people in that town. But word soon got around that monk was a very soft touch. So the next day, someone else asked him, can you give me something? I haven't got anything. I only got this robe. I was just given yesterday. That'll do. So the second time, he gave his robe away and came back to the monastery naked. And the other monk said, oh, here he comes again. So, okay, come inside, we give you another robe. And it happened 3 times. When he came back the third time, absolutely naked, they gave him a new robe, and the abbot said, come into my office. And the abbot gave him a real scolding. Say, look, it's all right to be generous. We've only got so many robes in our storeroom, and these are all donated by our lay supporters. We can't keep giving everything away to poor people. Anyway, the word's probably got around. They're just taking you for a fool. They probably don't need a robe, but they said, this monk is so stupid, he'll give you anything. So he gave him a real scolding. Now, even though this abbot was scolding and scolding this monk never once tried to defend himself. He just looked to the ground with humility, and he accepted the whole scolding. And when the abbot was finished, he said, go. And he went. About 15 or 20 minutes later, this monk knocked on the abbot's door and asked to come in. Come in, what do you want? And he had a cup of soup, of hot soup. What you brought me hot soup for? Said the abbot. The way you were shouting at me, I'm sure you've got a sore throat. This is for your throat. And he wasn't trying to be clever. He was really compassionate. When he was being scolded, he never thought of himself for one moment. He only thought of that poor fellow shouting and making his throat sore. That's the only thing he thought of. And so when he was released, he thought, I must help that person with a sore throat. So, the next time your husband scolds you, take it peacefully and then go and get him a bowl of soup. But why do you get upset when people scold us? If you've been doing anything wrong, you know you've done something wrong. If they're shouting at you, you haven't done anything wrong, there's no problem to get upset. In fact, you should be compassionate like that monk. Oh, that poor person has scolded me so much. Let's get him some of these sweets, which are good for the throat. The point is that when other people scold us, we allow them to take away our peace and happiness. They become like a thief. We allow them into our mind, into our heart, to take away all our joy, all our peace. We don't need to do that. Whatever another person says, no matter how cruel or harsh it is, you don't need to allow them to steal your happiness. You lock up your doors of your house. You never allow anyone to take your peace and happiness. That is yours. That's precious. So they can say whatever they like to you. If they scold you, shout at you, you should always remember this story. A long time ago, there was a man who had the afternoon off work. And his wife was very, very busy cooking the dinner. And she said, husband, I'm short of eggs. I need some eggs for the meal. And I'm so busy, you've got nothing to do. Would you mind going to the market and getting some eggs for me? He said, sure, I don't mind. And so the wife gave her husband a basket and some money, and she gave him the instructions of where the market was and how many eggs she needed. Now, he'd never been in the market ever before. But he went. As soon as he reached the market, as soon as he entered the market, this young man came up to him and said, sir, you've got a face like a camel. What? I don't even know you. And you've got a voice like a dog. What are you saying? And, now those are actually the polite things he said. As a monk, I cannot go any further. He said some awful, terrible, rude things to this husband. And in front of everybody. He said, I don't even know you. I've never seen you before. Why do you say such things? That never stopped the young man. And the young man gave him such a scolding, such a volley of abuse, some even really awful, crude, disgusting things he said to this husband. The husband turned around and went home. When he went back inside his house, his wife said, you're early, dear. Did you get the eggs? No. And I never want to go to that stupid market ever again. Don't send me there. Now, those of you who've got husbands, you know when your husband's like that, you have to sort of like stroke him to calm him down. It's a waste of time arguing when they're crazy. So, She talked to him very nicely, very gently, until he calmed down. Once he calmed down, she could get some sense out of him. So she asked him, "What happened?" He said, "Well, I went into that market and this young man came and he called me all these terrible names. I couldn't even say those words to you, what he called me. And I don't even know him. It's so unfair." And the wife said, "What did he look like?" And the husband described the young man, and the wife recognized him immediately. Oh, it's him. That poor young man, when he was a boy, he fell over and hit his head. He's actually crazy. He's mad. He had to stop going to school. He'll never get a wife. He can't get a job because he's crazy. He just hangs around the market all day. Sometimes he swears at me and calls me names. Sometimes somebody else. We tolerate him because the poor young man is crazy." And as soon as the husband heard that, it was because this boy was crazy. He thought, never mind. He didn't really mean it. He's just, loopy, that's all. So the wife said, "Now, I really do need those eggs. Could you really go back and get those eggs for me? Don't mind about that boy, he's crazy." And of course, once he realized the boy was crazy, he lost all of his anger, all of his being upset about being abused. So he went back to that market with a basket with the money, and the young man saw him again and came and called him camel face, dog breath, everything. But this time it didn't matter. He went to the store for the eggs. The young man followed him and called him terrible names. The woman behind the counter said, "Don't worry about him. He hit his head when he was young." "Yeah, I just heard. Poor fellow." And because he knew the boy was crazy, he could buy the eggs, endure all the abuse, walk out the market and come back home. Now that's the difference. If someone abuses us and calls us name, we realize they're crazy. It doesn't matter, does it? So the next time your husband calls you names, he's crazy. He must have hit his head that morning. Next time your wife scolds you, she's loopy. And it's true. It's called temporary insanity. Anger is temporary insanity. That's all it is. If you get angry at someone else, you're not smart, you're not wise, you're not in your right mind, you're crazy. So when someone's angry at you, it's temporary insanity. You leave it alone, you don't fight it, you just make peace with it. You say, "Oh, you poor thing that you call me such names." That's called compassion. And that works just the same with your meditation. If your mind is thinking all over the place, restless, it's a crazy mind. Why worry about your crazy mind? "Oh, you poor crazy mind, you must have hit your head somewhere this morning when you woke up." You make peace with it. You leave it alone. And by its nature, it will settle down by itself eventually. That's why when people come on a meditation retreat like this, 9 days, sometimes you get inspired and you have a good meditation and then you get despondent because it's not working. I've taught so many meditation retreats already. I know that don't even worry about all this judging yourself. You're going well, you're not going well. It happens despite you. Little by little, you'll calm down. Little by little, your restless mind will just stop being restless. The sleepiness will disappear. And you think, "Oh, look at me, I've got rid of sleepiness. Look at me, I've got rid of my restless mind." It's not you at all. It's just cause and effect, just the whole way this retreat runs. It's because of the retreat that you get quiet. It's because of me. I've been brainwashing you, and I'm brainwashing you now. It's strange, actually. I like the idea of brainwashing because it's true. What you say, as I began in the morning, you think that you're in control of this, but you're not, because I give you suggestions to let go, just watch your breath. It's because I tell you to. That's why you watch it. Remember what I said at the beginning? I told my abbot years ago, "Why do we build a hut over there?" He said, "That's a stupid idea, don't do it." All the time I said, "Why do we do this meditation? That's stupid." But eventually you do it. I get my way. I know psychology. You'll get peaceful